Minister, my dad served in the Irish Defence Forces for some 37 years, during which he served 3 tours of duty in the Congo and one of the earliest Irish overseas missions. In 1960, they landed in Lagos in bull's wool uniform and heavy black boots. They didn't have much then, but their small arms, weapons and very little armour. But they had their Irish spirit and the ability to get on with everything and everyone, no matter what the environment. I am proud of my father's service back then, and proud that I grew up in a married quarters of a military barracks, as I am proud of the Defence Forces today, with almost 700 personnel overseas in 13 missions, 12 countries and 1 at sea. The COVID emergency has only highlighted their role today in Ireland in contingency response. They never failed to front up when asked of their many capabilities, including engineering, logistics, transport, cyber and communications, medical, air and maritime, in any emergency. And this is the core of my few words today. While the core of the role of the Defence Forces is the defence of the state, its citizens and interests, including our economy, we must never forget their role in national resilience and emergency management. The Irish Defence Forces has become internationally respected as an impartial peacekeeping force, a force for good in fragile states and in places of conflict. The Commission report highlights a need to invest in military capability to bolster Ireland's security, and consideration of one of the greatest threats to global security is around climate change and biodiversity loss. In April of last year, Minister O'Brien and I travelled to Killarney National Park following a devastating fire there that destroyed species-rich habitat, contaminated water, destabilised carbon-rich soils and released CO2 into the atmosphere. While we are grateful to the Irish Air Corps for their support in controlling the fire, it took place a huge effort to bring it under control. But while Killarney fire was raging, there were also multiple fires taking place in various locations across the country, and there simply wasn't sufficient state or private air cover to deal with them. Over the past decade, we have witnessed record temperatures, record winter temperatures, increased frequency of extreme weather and flooding events, all evidence pointing towards a changing climate. Later this year, our department will lead on legislating for marine protected areas to protect biodiversity and habitats around our coasts. Our climate preparedness should include the consideration of multi-purpose use of our defence forces, our Navy and Air Corps towards enhanced protection for communities in the face of extreme weather events, wildfires, flooding, in protecting biodiversity of our territorial waters and coastal communities in the face of rising sea levels. From my perspective, every piece of equipment that we buy as a state should be dual purpose. Every troop-carrying helicopter used for firefighting and helping communities. Consider a strategic airlift capability to lift our troops to major missions, the same aircraft that can support the Department of Foreign Affairs in disaster relief, such as Afghanistan and the HSE. Our Navy has a huge role to play in the future on our coastlines and in our seas, not just in defending the state against a military threat or criminality, but in protecting, managing and monitoring our environment, our ecology and our economy. Our Army needs field hospitals, emergency bridging, flood relief capabilities. Our civil defence needs to be resourced. Every government department and agency should be consulted in defence, and in particular in providing national resilience and contingency capabilities. And we really do need to broaden our horizons beyond our land borders and into our seas and our airspace. Our Navy has performed heroics in the Mediterranean Sea in rescuing migrants, many of whom are fleeing the impacts, direct or indirect, of climate change. These humanitarian missions will need to continue, and our Navy needs to be adequately equipped to carry out the vital work safely and effectively. This work is referenced in terms of strengthening capabilities towards deeper engagement in international peace and humanitarian missions. I welcome reference in the report to revitalizations of the Reserve Defence Forces. Again, I would like to see a role for the RDF in our collective actions on climate and biodiversity. The review of aid to civil power states that the ATCP and ATCA should be subject to regular review for continued relevance and priority. Section 4.6, dealing with aid to civil authorities, outlines the need for a whole-of-government and needs analysis to highlight the trends and predict needs. Section 6.2, on capability development planning, advocates the creation of a civil-military structure to embed capability development. These recommendations point towards a way forward in integrating this reform process within the Defence Forces with the wider needs of the state and the state's asset, namely our land and water, and the important ecosystem services that they provide. While issues of pay and conditions are outside the scope of this report, like others, I am of the view that in order to build capacity within our defence forces and to attract young men and women who might be considering it as a career option, it is vital that it is an attractive career option. I welcome the recommendations regarding gender equality and diversity in the report. The Commission report outlines current threat and risk environment within the context of defence forces and designated roles. It states versatility, flexibility and resiliency will be required to adapt to change and to react, learn and recover from predicted and unpredicted threats and risks. Moreover, it places a high value on the ability to collaborate across service branches, government agencies, societal sectors and our national borders. Minister, I can think of no more important sphere for such collaboration than our battle to offset the worst impacts of climate change and biodiversity loss. In this context, I fully support your work to raise the capability of our defence forces and propose that all future planning should include the Defence Forces' collaborative role in protecting people, land, sea and all of our natural resources.